Sorry, got the big recording in progress announcement, so let's go that. Hello, everyone. Thanks for attending this Maryland Online webinar. My name is Richard Smith from Harford Community College, and I'm moderating this session. Our presenter today is Debbie Dorsey, Assistant Professor of Health, also at Harford Community College. A couple quick things before we go in. I just want to remind you to keep yourself on mute. If you've got any questions for Debbie, please put them into the chat room. I'll be checking those, and if there's anything urgent during the presentation, I'll bring that up to her. And then if not, she'll follow up at the end with any of those. If you've got any other questions, concerns, issues, please also put them in the chat room. I'll be monitoring that as well. So like I said, I've already introduced Debbie, and this is part 2 of her presentation that I wanted to take this course in the classroom, and now it's all yours, Deb.
Okay, so I see that we do have probably 5 people in here, and we have 23 that are registered. So I'd like to, if it's okay, let's just give maybe 1 more minute before we get started. I'll hold y'all in suspense for the time being. And then of course, you know, if we are not getting others in, a lot of times they trickle in, right, as I continue along. The fortunate thing is, for those of y'all who know me, I am redundant. So if anyone misses something, you know, they'll probably catch on as I go through. So let's just wait 1 more minute, and then we'll get started. All right, so technically that wasn't a minute, right? Hopefully everyone can hear me. Rick, could you just give me a yes, they can, to make certain?
Yes, they can.
Awesome. Okay. So I know some of y'all, hello. My name is Debbie Dorsey. As Rick said, I am assistant professor. I teach health, physical education, and exercise science. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about some things that I've done in my courses to convey presence. And really what this is about is multimedia production. So one of the things that I do, and it's fitting in this particular topic, I turn off my camera as I go through presentations. So I have it on right now so that you know that I am in fact a real person, but I'm going to go ahead and stop it so that we can go right into our presentation for today. And there we go. All right. So again, you know, why we all know that there are some students who this academic year, they would have preferred to have taken our courses in the classroom. And so what I'm going to talk about today is conveying social presence to that unhappy student. And what we'll cover is a very minimal review of the literature regarding nonverbal communication and affective association. Most of us, this is stuff that we know, whether or not we've read about it. I think that there are some general things that we all accept as true as we have, you know, taught online or understand online learning. I'm also going to talk a little bit about, excuse me, sometimes I have to take a drink, why I've used animation. I'm going to show you PalTunes, which is the software that I use. I'm going to give you some examples And so they're anywhere from 20 seconds to, I think at the longest, maybe 1 minute. And it's 1 minute of like, it's going to hold your attention. So, but for the most part, I'm going to try to keep them brief. There will be those examples. And then I'm also going to share with you some very preliminary data based on, what I sort of experienced. Of course, I don't have, semesters upon semesters of data, because we really have, sort of this scenario that we're in. It looks like maybe, do we have somebody in the waiting room? I'm not sure. Maybe not. We have this academic year that we were in this situation where, our schools went completely online, or, had a combination of both online and remote teaching. So again, with us at Harford Community College this academic year, of course, in the spring 2020, about halfway through the semester, everything shut down. We went entirely online. And then when we moved into the fall, we primarily had online courses. There were a few exceptions in the fall and the spring term. Now, I will be completely honest with you. In the fall, did a combination of online, which for me is a very comfortable place to live. I've been teaching online now for a very long time, about 15 years. Which, in the grand scheme of thing, in terms of how many years I've actually been teaching, has been the entirety of my teaching career. So that's a place where I was comfortable and familiar. I did have 2 courses that I agreed to teach remotely in the fall, and I did not like them in the slightest. That's basically another topic, but I will tell you that I disliked them to the extent that in the spring, the courses that I taught were exclusively online. Now, of course, I know that there are some students who prefer face-to-face, and for a variety of different reasons. And this is, to me, something that I really need to consider in general. But at the community college, we know that we have a very diverse group of students. We have non-traditional students, meaning they're adults. And we also know that adults they learn differently than younger people. As we get older, we lose that sort of plasticity of our brain, and it just takes us a little bit longer to comprehend concepts. And then, of course, we have some students who at the community college, and I don't like using this term, but it's the one that we all know, that they're not academically prepared for college level work. And so, all of these things could contribute to why, a student may prefer face-to-face. Now, what I'm going to focus on today is the audio-visual part of this. And I gave you a few things. This is from an article called "It's Just Nice Having a Real Teacher." And I've bolded I put in bold some words that, I think are very important. And see and hear, of course, we do that in a face-to-face setting, and not at least synchronously in a online course. And, when we're there, we see the emphasis, right? We get to see visual, the professor or the instructor's facial expressions, the way that they gesture, the tone of their voice. And so, we are able to pick up on, oh, okay, this is important. And this just kind of gives you some student statements about why they preferred face-to-face. I think that the other part of this is the student getting to know the professor and being able to see that this person really does love what they teach, and that helps them to, sort of be motivated and enthusiastic to learn the material. So these are sort of the things that make me go, and these are things that I've always sort of kind of kicked around, and tried to consider when designing my courses, because like I said, I teach online courses. I teach a mix of face-to-face, but in general, I teach more online. And, how do adult learners process audio-visual content? Obviously, that's going to be of importance in our online environment. And then excuse me, how important is nonverbal communication to learning? And so just to clarify, when we talk about nonverbal communication, sometimes folks just think about that as, I hear what you're talking, I hear you speaking, but that's not actually the true definition of nonverbal communication. Paralanguage is part of that. And so of course you can hear paralanguage, and we're talking about pitch, volume, and speaking rate. And these again are things that we use to convey an emphasis, I just did it right there, of what we're trying to communicate. But we also have nonverbal communication, body language. This is the one that we typically think of when we talk about nonverbal. And this is, the gestures and the facial expressions. And you can see this is a picture of me teaching exercise science before the epidemic shut us all down. And, while this is sort of a snapshot of what's happening, you can kind of see a little bit, who am I turned to? Where is my visual gaze? And these are things that they're sort of, we do them all the time, right? And we don't necessarily think about how much that is important to your student who, again, probably prefers to be in a face-to-face situation. Now, my colleagues really think it's funny to take pictures of me as I teach because I am very animated. I actually, in our student evaluations, I once had a student where the question was, what could the instructor do to improve the course? And the student wrote, maybe not gesture as much, which of course I thought was hilarious. But, here's a picture of me teaching a health course. And then the other picture, you probably see, I am not wearing socks. And again, this is because I am somewhat non-traditional in the way that I teach, and it doesn't matter to me that I don't have shoes on. And one of the reasons why I don't have shoes on in this picture is that in this particular class, we were doing motor skills demonstration. I had a student who was getting ready to demonstrate, and her shoes, she was wearing athletic shoes, but they were really slippery. And I thought, I would rather not, have a head injury be part of our time together. So I gave her my shoes that she could wear for the demonstration. Here's why nonverbal communication is important, and this comes as no surprise. There are many ways, there are many sort of factors here, but I'm going to focus on reinforcement and accentuation. These almost always occur concurrently, but we do break them into two separate components. That reinforcement is the facial expressions that indicate the emotion, and they usually happen with what we're saying, either at the same time or sort of within, if you nod your head and say yes, or if you shake your head and say no. And then accentuation is, your tone of voice, your speed of your speech. We put facial expressions in here as well, gestures, and again, you can see a little bit of overlap, but one is really focused on the facial expressions concurrent to what you're saying as a way of reinforcing concepts. And the other is a little bit more of, that paralanguage that we talked about. Now, affective association, there's been research on it. Some of it is mostly attributed to these three people. And what affective association is being able to address and convey the sort of emotional connections in a course. And we use emotion, humor, sarcasm, paralanguage, and self-disclosure. I use all of this in a face-to-face setting. And how do I do this in an online environment? Well, here is something that every single student in my course sees. I have it up everywhere. I refer to it constantly, and that is colloquialisms. And you can see, based on my body language and expression, I really don't like when students use colloquialisms in academic writing. And I'm going to talk a little bit at the end about, sort of why I think that it's a tricky thing with my particular population of students, trying to get them to understand and be able to write academically. So this is one of my alter egos, one of my animations. She's on the right, and then I use the other one that's on the left. In my videos when I'm showing who I am to my students. Now, in consideration of all of this, I have been teaching online. I know a bit about what some of the challenges are to being able to, teach in this sort of asynchronous environment. But also, now I have these students who are being forced to take a course online that they would normally take face to face. So it becomes even more, to me, I mean, it's always important that I be able to hit these sort of objectives when I'm teaching online, but they became even more, necessary for my students who, again, they really didn't want to be there. They'd rather be in the classroom. And so, of course, one is, how can I stress what I call the fine print? And this is the stuff like, using APA format, writing academically. It's the part of being successful in a course beyond just demonstrating your understanding of the subject matter. And then also, how can I really facilitate a better understanding of the course design, how they, navigate the course. I won't really get into this too much because it is somewhat of a separate topic, but my courses are designed in a very conscious way, in a very deliberate way. I use gamification principles. And so, it's important to me that, of course, the students understand, why and how that works. And then also, what are the assignment requirements? Oftentimes we're online, we're relying exclusively on written word to try to convey, what an assignment requirement is. And, for a student that needs that, the nonverbal communication, they're not getting that if I exclusively use, written typed document to convey that information. And of course, my subject matter. One of the things that I try to do is group the assignment requirements and the subject matter together in my multimedia productions. And so you'll see that in just a few minutes. Now, I should preface by saying, no, PalTunes does not pay me to do this, but this is the animation software that I use when I put together my multimedia productions. And then as you're coming in, if you would, just please make sure that you're muted. I will be providing this presentation to those of you who attended, and so you'll see that there are some hyperlinks here that you can look at. Now, PalTunes, I started using about, 10 years ago. It's been interesting to see how that company has evolved over the course of these 10 years. In the beginning, they used Flash, which those of you probably know is horrendous. And so we had, in the beginning of using PalTunes, there was a lot of, your screen would freeze and that sort of thing. It's come a long way from the tech perspective. But the reason why I initially started to use PalTunes was that we have some courses that we teach, PE courses, that are strictly online, and they rely upon the use of a device, your cell phone device to complete the course. So it's going to become really super important that the students understand how to do the things like how to record their exercise. And we started creating a series of tutorials. And this is how I started with PalTunes and using it to create these tutorials. So I'm going to go ahead and share my, let's see here. There we go. Share a little bit of what PalTunes looks like for those of y'all who are unfamiliar with it. And Rick, I'm going to rely on you as I'm talking about this to let me know if what I'm saying doesn't match up to what the screen is showing.
Will do.
Okay, hopefully everybody now sees that I'm on the PalTunes site. And I'm not sure how many among us have used animation software before. I have used a few others, and I find that this one is the most intuitive and user-friendly. But like anything that's new, if you've not used it before, there is a learning curve. And so in full disclosure, in the beginning, when you start to use this software, you're on a learning curve, and it's going to take a little bit. So I have an education license. It's they're fairly reasonably priced. And it does allow for you to have what, of course, they call seats. So meaning that you can create a classroom where you allow your students to come in and make their own content. I have done it with mixed results. So what I primarily use PalTunes for is to generate my own content rather than, have it in a classroom situation. I can do both. And you can see, these are all the things that I've created over, and there's far more over the course of using the software. But what I will show you is, sort of what it looks like when you create something. And PalTunes does provide you with different templates. They call them assets. And, it's taking its sweet time to load up here, but it gives you, a couple of different styles that you can pick from, because I am creating video that is, people talking. I will use either Modern Edge or the whiteboard. It does provide you, we'll go with Modern Edge here. It gives you some scenes that you can work within and then you can modify. What was very interesting when we went to this remote environment was how they included new scenes that address that. And so, for example, there's some scenes here of people meeting remotely, and there's also some scenes where people are wearing masks. They also introduced health and lifestyle. And again, sort of relative to what's happening, here's one where people are waiting in line wearing masks. And so with these, I have the option to, keep this as is. I can also go in if I want and switch it out with different assets. So for example, if I wanted to change this character, I could, and it would give me some, different characters to pick from. I could change anything that I see here. Let's see here. Anything that I see here on the timeline at the bottom here across. It's all pliable. I can switch it back and forth. And again, I think this is where you can see that, if you're not familiar with this, it really does take a bit of time to get used to it. And for me, I can spend hours just because I find it fascinating, and they're always adding some new stuff. But now that I've used it enough, if I need to get in here and just, sort of make something rather quick, I can, because I'm familiar with how to move things around. You can also start from scratch. If you don't want to use some of the prefab scenes, you can certainly, do a blank one and add things. You can also upload stuff here. They do have the video options that you can sort of have video going on in the background. There's just a lot that you can do here. Now, there is a way to use PalTunes so that you are overlaying audio directly into the software and creating an MP4 or generating, a hyperlink to the presentation. I don't do that. When I am creating my videos, I use Camtasia, and I pull down lots of different media. I overlay my audio using Camtasia. I essentially just create my scenes here and then pull them down as a file and upload them into the production software. But I did want to give you, a little bit of some, a visual of what it's like to use the software. So I'm going to go ahead back to our presentation. Let's see here. And there we are. Okay, and we'll go back. I'm a person who tends to talk as I'm doing stuff, so let's see.
Hey, Deb,
Yeah.
Eric actually asked a question that I think would be good just at this point. He asked,
Sure.
what type of videos do you typically develop with PalTunes? Lectures, demos, orientations, what are you actually using it for?
I use it for all of the above, and I'm going to give you some examples of it. In general, what I use PalTunes for in an online environment is a video overview of my assignments. I will also use them as in course orientations, how to navigate the course, what, again, I want to emphasize is important to the student that they need to know. In terms of production, I will talk to this in a few minutes here, but I almost never use them as a means of a recorded lecture. It's always pre-production. So hopefully, did I answer the question?
It sounds like it. Jane
Okay.
said thanks.
Okay, so let's go to this and there. Oh, come on here. And now you can kind of see where you can see a bit about why I like to do online versus. There we go. There we go. Okay, we're back. Hopefully, can you see the full screen?
Yes.
Cool. Okay, so why do I use animation? Why do I not just simply use video of me talking? So we're going to do a little experiment here, and I'm going to show you two different videos. They convey essentially the same information. And let's go to our studio and share. And here we go. Let's start from the beginning. Oh, now let's make sure that I shared my audio first. Let's see. Yes, good. Okay. Oh, are you able to hear it?
No.
It's a poor community,
Now,
and they definitely have some issues with obesity. Let me see here. Let's do a little refresh. All right. There we go. It's a poor community, and they definitely have some issues with obesity, which again is not uncommon in places where it's lower socioeconomic. And they also have sort of a food insecurity in a sense, in that it takes a while. It's 50 miles round trip to get to the grocery store.
Okay, so what I'd like for you to do is right now, just kind of think about, what did I just tell you and where was your focus? Now we're going to look at the second version.
Remember that Blossomtown's geographical location impacted their grocery store access. It's a rural community, and with houses spaced about half-mile apart, we can assume that there are no sidewalks or parks to promote physical activity. Lastly, community theory recognizes the impact of socioeconomic status on health behavior. 40% of Blossomtown's residents live below the poverty level.
Okay, so same question. What did I just tell you and where was your focus? I'm going to come back here. Actually, we can just do it like this. So, feel free to unmic yourself and answer the question. In the first video, where was your focus? Where was your attention? Nope. Or if you want to put it into the chat. This is always what happens when we're in these these webinars. People are like, I don't want to talk. Okay.
Eric put on the chat that my eyes were drawn to the motion on screen, video 1, picture-in-picture, video 2, PalTune.
Good. Okay, that's what I was hoping. And then let's think about, what did you retain or what did you hear me say in the first versus the second? Now, of course, there's an order effect, right? It kind of said the same thing, but hopefully, oh, I think that there's a response here in the chat.
No, it was just someone saying they have not had coffee yet. So
Oh, I understand. So hopefully, what you saw here is that in the traditional way where, I would record something that I was saying, and you could see my little floating head up here. What we find is that people tend to pay more attention to the floating head and not to the screen, right? So even though I conveyed the same information in the second video, your attention was going to be up here. The other thing, whether you were aware of this or not, was that you were probably listening or you picked up on me saying, as I was talking freely. And then when I did a production that used animation and software, I was able to write out a script and also then, get rid of all of those little in between. Now, of course, one could argue that, I could edit that out. On the first one, I could edit out my ums and ohs and all that, but that makes looking at me very strange. I don't know if anybody remembers Max Headroom from the 1980s where there was like jerky movements, when you try to edit that out of live video, it just looks terrible. So what we find again, and the research sort of supports this, is that really the floating talking head is a bit more of a distraction. The other thing that hopefully you picked up on in the second video was at the very end, it's not just my avatar that I use to convey, sort of that affective. I will also use it in, when I'm teaching a concept, the other characters that I may insert into the video. So let's do back to. It's a poor community. There we go. Let's go back to here. All right. So that was again diffusion of innovations. Now I want to go back here and just to clarify. I have committed what I think is blasphemy in that I just showed you a video that does not have any captions. And the reason being is that my video is hosted in Stream, our Harford 365 account. Right now, Harford does not allow anything that's up in streams to be viewed by people outside of Harford Community College. And so I pulled down clips, and now what you've seen is hosted up in screencast, and they were not captioned. But when you do get a copy of this right here, I'll put a transcript as well of what I was saying, and hopefully that will atone for my sins of not having it captioned. So again, animation versus the talking head. In animation, people are able to visualize complex information in a very simple way. And this is important, right? Because as I said earlier, adults learn differently, and it's just the reality of the situation. So what I want to try to do is not make it overly complicated for them to understand what I'm trying to communicate. Now here's the other thing, and you're going to say it first, well, wait a minute, Debbie, you were just talking about how affective association is important, and now you're kind of like, it seems like you're saying something different here. When you have animation versus the floating talking head, there is an emotional disassociation from the instructor's actual appearance and an increased engagement in learning material. Now, again, that seems contrary, right? But if you think about it, we're talking about what we want your emotion to focus on. Do you want it to be on you looking at me and seeing, I'm looking up here, I'm looking that way, what am I wearing? What's in my background? Why am I rolling my eyes? that again will take away your focus on the actual material. Whereas if I use animation, there's that disassociation, right? You're still able to pick up on the emotional context and those sort of nonverbal communication, but it helps you to hone in on the subject matter and not me. So I gave you the PalTunes demo, and now we're going to look at some examples of what I've used in the past. This is a virtual currency, and it is a part of that gamification that I talked about. So this is understanding course design and course navigation. I'll share a little snippet of that with you. Let's go to this one, and here it is.
Remember from the syllabus that I am very specific about what qualifies for makeup. Now, this is one of my avatars. Now, here's the thing. Remember, I just said, well, floating head. And chances are good right now you're looking at the left side of your screen. This is me talking, but hold that thought. Work. I absolutely, positively require documentation to determine makeup work eligibility. It's the only way I can verify why you missed a deadline. You might say that you were sick, but for all I know, you were off parasailing in the Bahamas. But I get it. You're not always going to the doctor when you get sick. And I will concede the possibility that sometimes life gets in the way and you will forget to submit something by a deadline. So the virtual currency system is a compromise. You can trade it for 3-day deadline extensions and do-overs on qualifying assignments, but you need to earn it and have enough of it before you can use it. You already know that in general, modules are 2 weeks in length. The first week you complete quizzes, the second week you submit an assignment. There are some exceptions to the length of modules, so make sure you understand the course schedule. It's in your syllabus. You know, the one you've committed to memory? All right, so again, this was me talking, but I switched. You saw that I used a gesture to point over to this side of the syllabus. You also heard, changes in my tone, the speed that I was talking. You saw some of my facial expressions, and you also saw the facial expressions and sort of the body language of the other characters, like the student coughing and the other student falling asleep. So, so that is one example. And let's go back here. I'm also going to show you this one. This is an example of understanding the assignment requirements. And this comes from, I think, my nutrition course. Be specific. This one has been known to make my eye twitch. Heather is eating a crazy amount of fat. I mean, seriously, what does that even mean? This sentence is not only ridiculous, but it carries the connotation that you are an expert in nutrition and thus entitled to make opinion statements. You're not. Stick with the facts and avoid opinions. Okay, so again, here, I could have put all of this in writing, and in fact, I do, but they wouldn't necessarily pick up on how important it is to not do these things in their assignment. And then here is an example of, this is actually an example of self-disclosure. So self-disclosure, again, when we're talking about conveying that sort of affective association, this is a way of showing your students who you are. And I'm using this in the context of helping them better understand the subject matter, which in this case, this comes from my exercise science course. For example, I sweat when I run, every time. This causes a decrease in my blood volume, but this is not the reason why from years of running, I am able to maintain a constant blood glucose concentration during most runs. Anyway, the glucose adaptation is the result of an entirely different physiological response, i.e., not from sweating.
Okay, and again, what I've done is I've shown myself in the context of this, which again helps them to better understand who I am, and then in return, makes them sort of interested even more in the subject matter, whether or not they are cognizant of that or not. And this is also a way for me to help them better understand in this particular case that the difference we were talking about, the difference between, I know this is super exciting stuff, right? Your physiological responses to acute exercise versus chronic exercise, which is a concept that is difficult for some students. The last one that I'll show you is about what I am expecting in terms of what the assignment requirements. And again, this comes from the exercise science course.
Maximum agility in karate. Let me go back because I gotta start it from the beginning. Here are some final words of wisdom. Stick with what the assignment wants. I'm not asking for information on proper nutrition for the golf swing. I mean, really, is there one? I do not need to know how much sleep is required for maximum agility in karate. Okay, and so this is something, let me go back here and switch to our presentation. Okay, and before I do that, like I said, you will get a copy of this in PDF, and I just went through all of these, but there's the hyperlinks, and there will also be, as I said, a hyperlink to the transcripts. As I said before, I use Camtasia for this, but one of the things that hopefully, you're sort of getting out of this is an understanding that when I include this animation as part of video, that I am able to convey who I am, what I think is important. These are the things that would come out if we were in a face-to-face situation. You would come to learn. Yeah, I tend to be somewhat sarcastic, and hopefully that translates to funny. I usually get some laughs in a face-to-face course, but you're getting to know who I am, and you're also getting to know that I'm very sort of interested in what I talk about, and you are better also at understanding the content and the expectations, not just simply about the expectations of the assignment. But I also will use these videos to really convey expectations in the context of the course policies. So, oftentimes I will use this and incorporate it into the very beginning, the course introduction, where we're helping our students to know how to navigate a course. Okay, so did I meet my goals? Well, and again, as I said before, I'm basing this off of one semester of, being in a situation where I, yes, knew that there were students in my online course that would really have rather been in the classroom. So first, right, how not to fail the course. These are those, the fine print, the things that are important as part of, the assignment. And what I found is that when I did start to incorporate these videos into the assignment, the students got better at identifying credible sources of web information. That was a constant struggle. It was so difficult for them to understand that no, a .com is not a credible source of information. And so just for anecdotally, I did see an improvement there when I really did stress that in the videos. The thing that continues, and this perhaps is just innate, I guess, to community college, is that the writing skills and the formatting just continue to be an issue. Even when I put them into, the videos, and sort of like I showed you at the beginning, how, I try to really emphasize that you should not use colloquialisms in academic writing. I still consistently see it. It continues to be a problem. And of course, when grammar and academic tone are part of your grading criteria, this is a problem. And hopefully, our goal at the community college is always to get our students ready so that they can be successful if they decide to transfer to a four-year college. So, they need to know how to write. We all know this. We've went to college, that writing becomes even more part of our 300 and 400 level courses. So this is something that's been, and not to go in a different pathway, but this is something that really we need to address in our curriculum and at the college level, because there is only so much that an instructor can do to help with some of these sort of ongoing issues with writing. Course navigation. So I've given you a quote from a student. This is an email that I got. And what I like, or I think is important about this, is that this is an adult student. So they are non-traditional student, and they self-disclose, this is what it was like when I first started school. I didn't do well. I'm back, and here is, why. Here is the positive feedback about your course, that and what was really important here is instructions for everything were clear. And that is what I'm always hoping, that it's a communication. And that's nice, they showed it, they understood the dedication to communication, because it takes some time to create these videos. And so yeah, that does show a bit of dedication to my students about really helping them to understand the content and the assignments. I also saw that there was, in terms of their understanding of the assignment requirements, that the level of detail that they were putting into their assignments and their accuracy did improve. And again, this is anecdotal, but of course, this is important. I need, in an online course, I need for you to show me that you understand and that you accurately understand, right? And so I did see this improve. Now, here's just a little bit of data, and I'm going to break down and explain this particular chart. So this is Health 106. This is nutrition. And I've taught this course online forever. If you look at fall 2019, so this was exclusively an online course. At the same time, there was also a face-to-face section available. I didn't teach it, but you can look at this particular group as people who did specifically choose to take the course online. And this is very similar, what you're seeing here in terms of ABC and DFW percentage. This is not too different from sort of what I saw when I looked, across other semesters where I taught the course online. And that is, I didn't like the fact we got 32% at a DFW. That's, while unfortunately tends to be a bit more like what we see in our online students compared to our face-to-face students, to me, it's unacceptable. So I started to think to myself, all right, what do I need to do here? And this is where I started bringing in these videos that had the animation, and also focused on subject matter assignments and course navigation. So look at this. In spring 2020 and fall 2020, again, the course was offered both online and face-to-face, and the numbers really did improve. Now, can I, say that this is exclusively the video? Obviously not. There are some little tweaks that happen as we go on our courses. We always sort of make a little bit of changes, but I do think that it did contribute. I think that students were better. Their understanding of what was required did improve. And I was particularly happy with fall 2020. I got almost 90% of students getting a C or better. Now, here's spring 2021, and the course was only offered online. So of those students, we can make the assumption that certain number of them probably would have taken the course face-to-face. And it's still good results. When I look at it compared to, fall 2019, it's better. It's, 82% ABC and 18% DFW. So, I'm pleased with this. I am a person who sort of almost obsessively monitors their course data from semester to semester. And I'm always trying to figure out, ways to make it better for the students so that they can be more successful. I'll show you one other one, and this is exercise science. This is, I should preface by saying that this is a new course. It's part of a new degree program. And so it was this fall 2019, I believe it was the debut of the course. This was the first time it was taught, and it was face-to-face. So I got 84%, at a C or better, and 16% DFW. So fast forward to fall 2020, it's online. I still got pretty decent results compared to, when I taught it face-to-face. I was happy with this. I felt like, yes, of course, there was a little bit of a better outcome, when it was face-to-face, but knowing that there were students in fall 2020 who would have rather been in the classroom. And I should also add that this exercise 101, the content is, even though it's a 101 course, the content is fairly heavy, I guess, or complex, because it is a science-based course. So to get students who were able, that demonstrated that they really did get the information, I thought it was a win. And subjectively, again, or anecdotally, I can tell you, I would have loved to be able to share, some of the course evaluation feedback, but if some of you may experience this, that the percentage of students who actually complete the evaluations at the end is, it's great when I get 50% who've completed the evaluation. So that's one of the reasons why I didn't put it up here. But I did, of the ones that did complete it, they tended to say, yes, they could tell that I was passionate about the subject, and they felt that the communication was pretty good. So again, to me, this tells me that, the level and the amount of time that I put into creating these videos is helpful to the student. Here is me. Here's my avatar again. This is my information. I'm always happy to share what I create. There's, I'm in education. I'm never going to make a whole lot of money, so I'm not very proprietary about the things that I create. I'm happy to share them. And I'm also, always happy to answer questions. So, please feel free to reach out if you do have those questions. I'm going to go ahead and get out of this now and stop sharing. I think I did that. I think I achieved that. All right, and I'll start my video back again. You can see I am a real person. So at this point, are there questions?
Wendy just asked in the chat how long it takes to make a video. Are they easy to update if needed?
So I don't want to scare you, but it can be, depending on the length, depending what I'm attempting to achieve, it can be 12 hours for 4 minutes of video. Those tend to be the very sort of detailed. They tend to be more about either process, showing students the process or the steps that they need to go through. So procedural type videos, or those that are really trying to convey subject matter that's a bit more complicated. When I see students struggle with certain concepts, that's the time where I'm really going to bring that up, or I'm going to show that in a media presentation. I'm really going to utilize PalTunes to generate and convey and do as much as I can to help them better understand that concept. And so that then does require, very specific storyboarding, making sure that the images help that student to better understand. Now, on the flip side, if it's something that is sort of a here's what's important and you need to know, then they don't take as long. One of the things that I've started doing, because we know that repetition facilitates understanding, is that I've accumulated enough clips now that I will reuse footage. So in the past, if I, had this clip about don't use colloquialisms, and it's still happening, then I may bring that same clip back into the next assignment as a way to reiterate, don't use colloquialisms. So of course that then also helps, with the time. In the beginning, you're on a learning curve if you start to do this. It's going to take more time. You have to give yourself more time. The other thing that I would recommend for those of y'all who are familiar with the Online Learning Consortium, there was one that I took, and it may still be offered, about 8 years ago, and it was about storyboarding. And I found that it was really, really helpful at making my time more efficient because of the steps that I would take to storyboard something rather than just trying to free flow create it. So if this is something that you're interested in, that's something that you might want to investigate.
So we only got a couple minutes left. Eric's got a couple questions in the chat,
Sure.
but we only got time probably for one of them.
Okay.
I'll go with the first one. In your experience, which video type promotes greater instructor social presence online, the animation video or the talking head video?
Animation.
Well, that answered that question nice and fast.
Yeah, and again, I've never asked students very, specific and targeted questions about this. But I think that the animation does, and what I'll also sort of give actual real data. The one that I showed you that was a talking head, and then the one that was the animation. The talking head was the one that I did in the previous academic year, and that was an assignment that they bombed. It was not good at all. When I re-recorded it and used the animations, I had about 70% ABC, whereas it was 30% when I did the talking head. And I did a lot of talking heads in the beginning prior to making this switch. And I just, it was mixed, my problem with the talking head is again, it's disjointed and they tend to be very long. We know that students have like 5-minute attention span. I wanted to keep them visually engaged in the concepts and what I was communicating and not have them focus in on, God, she said, again, how many times is she going to say, and it just was smoother, clearer communication.
Okay, so we got 1 minute left and we got to do like a quick wrap up at the end. So 30 seconds if you can answer this. In terms of development time, could screencasting with the webcam on and annotating on screen achieve similar social presence?
Possibly. I mean, I would say that anytime you can show a student who you are, you're hopefully going to get better results. I think we just need to be cognizant of facilitating better understanding and not inadvertently being distracting, right? Because conveying things when I'm not there to tell you them, answer your questions, is not the same as if I'm being animated like I am right now in a classroom. People can pause and say, hey, can you clarify that? They can't in a video. So we want to try to do our best to minimize distraction.
Good job. It's literally just turned 11 a.m. as you said that. So thanks everyone. This was great. Anything else from anyone? Deb, any last words?
It takes a long
10 seconds.
No. It takes a long time, but it's worth it. And if you have questions, ask me.
Awesome. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.